Hey, God bless the whole entire universe. We're in that Orthodox Bible, the first books of Ezra. We love the Orthodox, which means original. My grandfather was a priest for 40 years. My grandmother lived to the 100, so they were definitely people of God. So about this time, the Jewish people were captured for 70 years. There was a King Cyrus over all of Persia. And let's go in. 2:1. When Cyrus was reigning over the Persians in his first year, the Lord stirred up the spirit of King Cyrus of the Persians for the compilations of the Lord word by the mouth of Jeremiah. And so he had made a written proclamations in all the kingdoms, saying, Thus says Cyrus the king of the Persians, Israel, Lord, the Lord of Most High, reveals and indicated to me that the king of the inhabitants' world, that I should build a house for him at Jerusalem in Judea. And therefore, if any of you are from his nation, may the Lord be with you. And when you go up to Jerusalem and Judea, may you build the house of the Lord of Israel. He is in the Lord who dwells in Jerusalem. And therefore, let as many as are living around you in various places help you with gifts of gold and silver, with horses and cattle, as well as with your other things added as votive offerings for the Lord temple in Jerusalem. And then the chiefs of the families of Judah and of the tribes of Benjamin, and the priests and the Levites, and everyone whose spirits of the Lord stirred up, stepped forth to go and build the Lord's house in Jerusalem. And those round about whose hearts were stirred and helped, and then everything with silver and gold, with horses and cattle, and with very great numbers of votive offering. And King Cyrus also brought forth the sacred vessels of the Lord, which Nebuchadnezzar had carried out from Jerusalem. Must be the stuff they took out of the temple. And placed in his temple of idols. Cyrus, king of the Persians, brought these out and handed them over to Mithridates and his treasures, and he in turn gave them to Sheshbazzar, to the chief leader of Judea. The number of these was as follows: and 1,000 gold cups, 1,000 silver cups, 29 silver censers, 30 gold bowls, 2,410 silver bowls, and 1,000 other vessels, all the gold and silver vessels handed over, and totals 5,469. All of these together with the returning captives were brought back to Jerusalem by Sheshbazzar. Rebuilding of the temple opposed. What? 1:12. But Bishlam, Mithrates, and Tabi, Rehums, and Bethamus, and Shemshai, the scribes of the other members of their councils, as well as those living in Samaria and other places, wrote a letter to Artaxerxes during the time he was king of Persia. And they wrote it against those dwelling in Judea and Jerusalem, and scribes as follows. And to King Artaxerxes, our Lord, from your servants Rehum, and the recorded of Sheshai, and the scribes and the other members of their council, the judge of Caesarea and Phoenicia, and let it known to be to our Lord that the king, that the Jews who came up from you too went to Jerusalem to build a rebellious and evil city. And they are restored in both the marketplaces and its walls, and are laying a foundation for the temple. If therefore this city is built and its walls completed, they will not continue to pay tribute, but will also resist kings. Since works being done on the temple, we assume it's best not to overlook such a matter, but to address our Lord the King, that if it seems appropriate to you, this may be researched in the book of your forefathers. For you will find a record of these things in archives. You will learn that this city rebellious and troubled both kings and cities, and that the Jews themselves are rebels. They form military blockades, and it is from ancient times, which is the reason the city itself was destroyed. Therefore we now make known to you, O Lord, our King, and that if this city is built and its walls restored, you will no longer have access to this city that I can't pronounce. And then the king wrote back to Rehum and the recorder, and to Belthemas and Shemashah and the scribes, and to the other members of their councils.
and to those dwelling in Samaria, Syria, and Phoenicia, and he inscribed his letter as follows. I read the letter you sent to me, so I commanded a search to be made. And it was discovered that this city from ancient times stood in a hostile array against kings, and that the people within it preparated rebellions and war, and that the mighty and fierce king were ruling in Jerusalem, levying tributes from that city, Phoenicia, and therefore I have now imposed order to prevent those men from building the city, to be careful not to do anything contrary to this order, and to do nothing to cause trouble for kings. After they read the letter from King Artaxerxes, and Rehums and Shemashai and the scribes and the other members of their councils went speedily to Jerusalem. They departed with cavalry and a large number of armed soldiers, formed in battle array, and began to hinder the builders to the buildings of the temple in Jerusalem, became idle until the 2nd year in the reign of Darius, king of the Persians.
Wow, so a lot of things are going on right there, obviously. And so King Cyrus had a dream, and it was to help the cities, but it seems like all the other kings did not want to help him. So they wrote a letter talking about how rebellious Israel is. And if you think about it, they are rebellious against other kings because they stay with God 100%, and they'll die for him. You remember Josiah, he was a righteous king, but he interfered in some other war. God told him to stay out, and he got killed, but he had the greatest Passover of all time. Well, at least at that time and before. So just as Josiah was the last Jewish king to seek the truth of God, so Cyrus was the first Gentile king to find truth in the Lord of Israel. And just as God used Cyrus, a gentle king of Persia, to rebuild the physical temple and set the Jews free, so he will use the Christ King of the Jews to build his church and set the Gentiles free. Wow.